republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vice President Geary.
Here.
Councilor Kirkland.
Here.
Councilor Pope. Here. Councilor Miller. Here. Councilor Pottstown.
Here.
President Taruni.
Here.
Councilor Wien.
Here.
Mayor Thomas.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes for April 4th, 2014.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion or corrections? Or April 4th, I'm sorry, or 14th. That was the 14th, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Comments from citizens present?
Jackie Miller.
Yes. I don't know how this goes. This is my first time.
Take a seat at either the table or the microphone.
I don't know how all this goes. This is my first time here, but I was interested in asking a question about affordable housing and what's going, really what's going on with that.
In respect to which project?
There's a project that's going to be done there at the Ellis Mills old building.
Okay, that's the Petra project.
Yeah, Petra project. I don't know, do I just ask the question? I mean, this is my
Yeah,
first
go ahead,
time.
yeah.
Oh, my problem is, excuse me for my handwriting, I forgot my glasses, so I really can't see that well. But my question is, I have been doing a lot of research lately. Me and my husband have become disabled in the last few years, and so I've been going online looking for affordable housing. But when you look at affordable housing, my question is the cost. And when I look at the cost, when they say affordable housing, it's for people that are on Section 8 or people that aren't on Section 8, as my husband and myself being 55 and older. But the cost is so much. I mean, and then when you call these places, they want, for a two-bedroom apartment, you have to come up with almost $2,300 to $3,000. And being disabled and on Social Security disability, the funds aren't always going to be there. They're just not there at times. And there's times when I call these places and you don't get an answer. You get an answering machine, and I've been looking for a place for about a year, and I still haven't came up with anything. And when I call these places, the rents for two bedrooms are like $900 and $950, $1,000. And if you do get in contact with someone, like I said, the money that they want is just really a lot of money. They want 3 months rent, and I ask them why, but I understand what they mean. But this leaves me and my husband stuck in an apartment on a street that I am afraid to come out after dark because I live across the street from a bar. And it's just hard to find a place in Pottstown when you say affordable housing. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's in this plight, because the money's, I mean, people aren't making a whole lot of money. Like most people that I know that's not making a whole lot of money. I mean, if you don't make past $10, $11, $12 an hour, it's just hard to find a place here in town. And then when you do find a place, it's not the best place. They're not the best place. They're not safe half the time. Or the landlords just don't do what they say they're going to do, and you're putting out this kind of money. You're putting out $900 to $800 to $1,000. You want, safe, affordable housing. And that was my question about affordable housing. When they say affordable housing, what does that mean? What do you mean by affordable? And that's just what my question was.
Well, we have your name and any information we can pass on to you, possibly go through the adult and aging, as far as that agency, or even.
I tried everything, sir, and it's just.
Yeah, we'll give you some information. We have your name, and somebody will be in touch.
Okay, that was my question, hoping that they would, these people that are going to do this project, that maybe it'll be, you know, something that people like me and others, senior citizens or others that, you know, are disabled or whatever might be their problem, can really, you know, believe that this is affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy Peretti.
Good evening, council members and Madam Mayor. I too have concerns about the Ellis Mills project, of course. I'm here tonight to express my concern about the proposal to convert the third floor of Ellis Mills building into yet more affordable housing units. Although at present the proposal limits the housing to the third floor, the current state of the downtown business district is at best confusing, and mixing these units with what sounds like a legitimate plan for the first and second floors will only add to the confusion. I don't see a clear strategic plan for the downtown district to follow, which increases the chance that this project will not be fulfilled as promised. Ellis Mills is one of the premier properties of the downtown district and be a great asset to its economic development if utilized properly. I would also like to express my concern in the fact that the county is directing yet another project to Pottstown that includes a certain type of housing that is not in the best interest of our future, and with the Beach Street project promising financial support in that scenario. Affordable housing is a necessity for every community, but Pottstown already shoulders more than its fair share. Even more concerning is that on April 30th, a press conference was held in Norristown announcing the Norristown Quality of Life Policing Task Force, which is to help decrease the fear of crime. Not only did this press conference have a display of Norristown's law enforcement, but Risa Furman and the county, all three county commissioners attended. It occurred to me that possibly our county seat is beefing up their efforts to revitalize, thus giving them more reasons to divert anything that may not be in their community's best interest to their favorite dumping ground, which is Pottstown. And now they have a plan to follow to get where they want to be. I understand that council must entertain any proposal that is presented to the borough, but as I did with the Beach Street project, I am asking council to reject this proposal and send a message to the county that enough is enough. We should look at the events of the past few months as a watershed mark to make changes on how we accept and approach development. Recruiting for-profit developers that can truly invest in the community should be the approach. I must also say, as an investor in the downtown, that if there is a plan for development of the downtown business district, I was very challenged to find it online. What is the plan Padita and Pate are following? And what do they have to say about specific development for business, retail, and residential opportunities? Are they following the 4-point Main Street approach as outlined in the National Historic Trust for Preservation? These should be questions that are not hard to find answers to. If we want this to stop, and if we want the county's image of Pottstown to change, then we must show them we have a clear idea of where we are going and how we are going to get there. In the meantime, any affordable or subsidized housing proposal should be rejected, or else the message to current investors of the downtown district will be clear. More affordable housing is what Pottstown wants, and I'm sure many property owners will be happy to comply. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Denise Minner.
Good evening. I talked to Eric a week ago because we were underwater again in our basements. They were supposed to address the corner of Washington and Laurel Street to fix the pipe problems because it's always in our basements. Nothing has been done and it's already May. And she talked about these barriers or something that cost $50,000, but they don't have the money now. And I thought you were going to fix this problem. You have no clue what it's like living in water in your house all the time.
This is stormwater that's coming up, or sewer water?
Yeah, on the corner of Washington and Laurel.
I know, is it stormwater?
The drain, yeah, it's from the drains, basically. She said something about put a Band-Aid on it, but that wouldn't hold it. And I don't know if the barricades or whatever the wall she was talking about.
I can speak to it.
Sure.
Okay. This is part of the Laurel Street Flooding Mitigation Project. It's funded through Community Development Block Grant Funds. Staff has met with BCM to look at the project and implementation. We do have a certain amount of funding. Depending on what we can do as far as the planning, we are looking at pump stations that would be needed, which are around $50,000. That figure was provided. So right now we're planning to go before infrastructure at the next meeting to discuss the budget and the different approaches, because the ductile valves that would be installed would still provide a surcharge element of water that has to be treated. So it's just still within planning, and but we do have a dollar figure to work on the neighborhood and this issue. So it definitely is part of community concern. The county recognizes that. We see that it's just a matter of funding at this point in order to implement the project and make it a comprehensive plan. So we're still working through that, and I do understand how the concerns over the recent flooding event can bring that up. And I know that it's hard with working with the time and the constraints that we have. But I ask for the flexibility just so we can work out the best course of action to do the right thing instead of doing something that may not work.
So we're at least addressing it. It may not be occurring, right away, but at least it's in the works. So that's, and I remember that this has been an ongoing problem for many years. So I don't know how long you've lived there, but it's
30 years.
yeah. And how long has it always been? 30 years, or is this just recent? Like in the past 10 years, would you say?
Yeah,
10 or more.
Yeah, the past 10 it's got
Yeah,
worse.
because I can tell myself that even in my area, I've lived in my area for over 30 years, and I can tell the stormwater certainly has changed as far as the rains that we're getting, but also the way that it it doesn't just rain lightly; it downpours, and naturally that certainly doesn't. When you get that much rain occurring in such a short period of time, our system just can't handle it. So it's, I know that there's been a big change in my neighborhood also. So at least we're working on it, and it's the best we can do at this point. That's it? Okay. Okay, we'll go on to mayor's report. So we have a public hearing at 7:30.
I'd like to begin my report by just reporting on the opening ceremonies for the 175th anniversary of the Pottstown School District. Was very successful launch amidst the car show and the powwow on Saturday, May 3rd. I wanted to give a statistic about the number of graduates that have commenced through Pottstown High School over those years, up to and including 2013, has been 19,024 students. I'd also like to report that as far as the top 3 reportable incidents for the April report for crime, domestic violence, theft, traffic and parking were the top 3 concerns. I attended a program held recently at the YWCA. They had a student intern from the community college that worked with the YW board to put together a Q&A informational session on taking a stand against racism. And that included such topics as identifying what actually constitutes racism. There were elements of immigration law. There were implications for English as a second language and how that relates to the workplace, and just general interactions with people throughout all different venues. There was a conversation about education advocacy as well as sexual harassment. The panelists included Judge Cheryl Austin, who is an advocate for equitable social justice, whether for students or juveniles in trouble or adults that are seeking to have record expungements, either through the county level or through attorneys. There was some discussion about how people could go about getting their records cleared so that they could be eligible for employment. Sometime during the discussion, a member of the YW board has identified that over 100 years they have been in this mission to eliminate racism and empowering women. So her question was to the panel, which was primarily people from east of, what's the corridor? 202. east of 202 that had come over to be a part of this panel. And the question was, where do we begin? So I'm not going to answer that question or project that question as relevant to this report. But for a mission to be over 110 years old, going on in one location, and we're still looking for a beginning point, means that we all have to contribute to not only the beginning, but getting the wheel turned on these issues regarding social interactions, professional interactions, and all levels of interaction with involving women and race as far as equity. Regarding the issue to have the local police able to enforce radar by having a change in the municipal code for this, I would like to request a letter from the Council of Governments and the regional planning to also be sent forward to the appropriate parties in support of this, so that we can have as many entities as possible having a voice on this issue. I'd like to speak also to the letters of support for development in the downtown, as well as the development of the Arts District. And I'm just speaking to this in general terms, as far as the perceptive notion goes. And I would have to say, I echo some of your comments about a little bit of the confusion with the perception of the Ellis Mills project. And with this letter of support, we're not making any statements, but I will say for myself that my appeal will go to the federal government, to the state, and to the county regarding our need for additional money to leverage the improvements in redirecting the quality of life in certain communities. With this project that has a tone of an underpinning with redirecting homeless into the Ellis Mills building with the redevelopment of the apartments, and I'm not against having homes, housing, or anything made available for people that are homeless, but it seems that this is now starting to be the place to gather for everyone who has a physical challenge, a social challenge, or a mental challenge. But what we have is an eroding tax base. We have a distinct homeless population. We have an abundance of seniors who foot the bill for education, and an offset amount of renters who do not contribute. This to me reminds me of the unfunded mandates that are handed down to education. This is not appropriate. There needs to be a formula derived, and I will be pressing for that formula so that disadvantaged communities similar to Pottstown are not made the destination point as well for all of the very difficult and delicate issues in our society, but not given appropriate support. And that appropriate support is not to come through begging. It's to come through the fact that this is now strategic design, so there should be a strategic money trail. That's the end of it.
Okay, thank you. Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Council may recall last year you extended the lease at the All That Boys and Girls Club at Ricketts Center, which is due to expire in June of this year. Just want to let you know that with the solicitor and staff, we are currently working on that and should have something for you next month moving forward. I believe at last month's meeting there was concern expressed over what seems to be a glut of parks and rental fee waiver requests. I just want to let council know that Mike Lenhart, the Director of Parks and Recreation, is attempting to eliminate the previous ambiguity in the way fees were assigned to the parks, and we should have a plan coming forward in the very near future in that regard. I'd like to remind everyone that this coming Thursday, May the 15th, is National Peace Officers Memorial Day. Flags of the United States will be flown at half-staff. And then on Sunday, May 26th, the Pottstown Joint Veterans Council will sponsor the annual Pottstown Memorial Day Parade in honor of those who served our country in a different way. It will be held on High Street. I believe it starts at Goodwill Fire Company at 10 a.m. Or Monday, I'm sorry, it says Sunday again. As a reminder, I believe Erica spoke of this last week. The grand opening for mini golf will be occurring on Friday, June the 13th, with the
Oh, we're gonna have a guest.
with the ribbon cutting occurring on Thursday, June the 12th. Invitations for the ribbon cutting event will be forthcoming. Also let council know and the community know that we plan on changing the hours of operation here at Borough Hall, the regular hours of business, effective June the 30th of this year. Our hours will be Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4 o'clock p.m., with additional hours on Wednesday until 7 p.m. This will be every Wednesday, and ironically it'll intersect once a month with a council meeting, so I anticipate that we'll see more people in attendance at our council meetings. The windows for transactions will be the windows that are open on Wednesdays. It'll be the finance office, the tax office, licensing and inspections for the purpose of obtaining permits, and parks and recreation for the purpose of obtaining tickets to events and the various services that they provide. Next, many of you may recall that the borough entered into a joint project with the Pottstown School District at 22 East 2nd Street. It was a project where the borough helped obtain the building and then the funding for the school district to remodel the house, bring it up to code, and it is now happily, I believe it reported before, owned and occupied by a resident and not rented. The profit for the sale ended up being around $7,500, and that profit was chewed up through the process of getting the house ready, the final, shall we say, inspection and the minor repairs that had to be done. I believe there's a balance, Janice, of about $650. However, as those issues were taken care of prior to sale, we paid for them, we being the borough, took care of them out of the general fund, and the $7,500 when it came in sits in escrow. It is still sitting in escrow. The 2013 books are closed, so there's no using the escrow to balance that fund. I'd like to ask council to consider allowing that money to remain in an escrow account to be used by the school district when they begin to their next project, which I believe may not be in the too distant future. Allow them to, again, let the students fix up the property and then turn it over to someone to occupy or use. So I'd ask council to consider allowing that money to remain in escrow. Now, last but not least, you recall last month you approved the June soapbox derby events, the closing of Wilson Street for the Ambucks. Since your approval, the Ambucks have been meeting with various contractors in an attempt to get the cracks on Wilson Street sealed so that they have a smoother surface for the races to occur in June. Three of the contractors, I believe it was three, have stepped up to the plate and suggested to the Ambucks that they would be willing to donate time and materials to mill the entire track surface on Wilson Street and to lay down new pavement. Originally, the concept was to build the pavement up, and Doug, if I get the terms wrong, please correct me, but we end up with a crown on the roadway that we don't want, a high spot in the middle. The contractors came back and said that if the borough would be willing to donate $7,000 for the Ambucks to turn around and pay them, they will go to the full milling and we'll get basically a new street surface for a very reasonable amount of money, which will increase the longevity of that street before the borough has to use liquid fuels to get the street resurfaced. I've spoken to Mr. Yerger, I've spoken to Ms. Lee, the finance director, I've spoken to a solicitor. We all believe we can make this happen, so you can anticipate that we have a new road surface in the very near future, thanks to the Ambucks efforts. That's the end of our report.
Questions? Charlie, yes.
I know you didn't use our finance report for your notes for your manager's report. A lot of what our borough manager spoke about this evening was discussed in finance and administration. We are in support of changing the borough hours to make us more user-friendly and more efficient in our operations. And we are in support of all the efforts that the Ambucks have put forward to resurface those portions of Wilson Street as needed for the race. And on the 363 days of the year that they don't race on, it will be a benefit to the town. Am I correct in remembering this will save the borough about $30,000?
Doug, is that accurate?
That's what they're projecting the cost at.
Okay. So we thank the ambulance for going forward with this.
The June, would that be time enough for the, to decide on the monies for the school district?
The June meeting?
Yeah. Okay.
That's going to sit in escrow to the.
All right, we'll make sure we have that rigid. All right, at this time, we're going to go into a public hearing. I'll turn it over to our solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've advertised a public hearing for this evening at 7:30 for the purpose of taking comment on the proposed borough comprehensive plan. For the last 18 to 24 months, the Pottstown Borough Planning Commission, with the assistance of the Montgomery County Planning Commission, has been working on reviewing and updating the borough's comprehensive plan, which is a requirement under the municipality's planning code. I'll turn it over to public comment on the plan itself, but before we do that, Meredith Curran from the County Planning Commission is here. And Meredith, for the benefit of the public and council, if you just give a brief overview of the content of the plan and some of the significant revisions would be, I think, as part of the hearing.
I was here back in December presenting on an overview of the plan. Since that time, would anyone like a recap of the plan? It has 10 chapters, including a community profile, chapter on land use, economic development, transportation, housing, historic and cultural resources, parks, recreation, open space, as well as community facilities and services. Since I presented to you, and the plan was posted on the borough's website for public comment, we also sent notices to the surrounding municipalities and school districts to solicit any feedback from them as well. In the time since December, we have received a few comments from mostly community organizations that exist in the borough. We received comments from Art Fusion, as well as from the Mosaic Community Land Trust. And their comments were, I would say, minor in terms of maybe adding in, there was a request for more emphasis on sort of the cultural goals and sort of our art goals of the region, as well as a request to mention their organizations as part of the organizations that exist in the borough that are doing some of the great work here. So for the most part, those comments were addressed and information was added. And so I do have a couple of draft copies. Pass around.
As Meredith noted, there's a number of procedural items that must be satisfied for council to approve the comprehensive plan. In addition to providing it to the neighboring municipalities and school district, it's been provided to the Montgomery County Planning Commission, who is obviously supportive of the borough's adoption of the plan in its present form. It's been provided to the local planning commission, Dan, I believe at the March meeting, the planning commission did vote to approve and endorse the February, March, and then we missed one in there. Voted to recommend the council adopt the comprehensive plan. Notice of the hearing was advertised. The plan's been out on the website. It's been at the library. It's been made available for public comment. So I think procedurally, we've done everything we had to do to get the plan out there. And again, if the council has any questions, Meredith is probably most familiar with the content of the plan. And there are no questions. Meredith, do you have anything else you want to tell? Because I'll open it up for public comment. And you might want to hang around for what the comment is.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. Once it is adopted, whether it's tonight or any night, we would put that resolution into the plan, and then the county will provide the borough with, I believe it's going to be hard copies as well as a digital electronic version of it.
Keep in mind too that it is a work in progress, that there, it's fluid, it will constantly be changing, adding to it and so forth as things happen and occur. So it's not like this is cut in stone until we redo it again. So it's a project that, we want to keep on someone's desk and, having rabbit ears and marks and post-its added to it and so forth as we go through it.
Definitely, and I think today with a lot of times these documents are now more web-based than they are kind of located in hard copies, which does make it easier to allow these ongoing updates. We've been making changes really the past few months just to keep up with the developments that are going on in the borough. changes happening, and that's great. And so but there'll certainly be changes in years to come to update the document to reflect the current conditions and the goals and objectives of the borough.
It is a long-term planning document, and yet it can serve as the basis of the borough's land use map, the borough's zoning ordinance, and many of the other ordinances the borough would adopt. So it's there for a reason, and obviously there's a number of different chapters that deal with different items that will be associated more with land use and things of those nature. So it really is a document that should be looked at and should be considered when you prepare policy or when you amend ordinances. Ready for public comment? Is there anyone in the audience that has any public comment with respect to the draft document? If you do, please state your name and address, and then we'll take your comment. Certainly not required that you provide anything, but certainly as a prerequisite to the adoption of the resolution this evening, the public hearing is a necessity. Mr. Green, your name and address, please.
My name is Arthur Green. I live at 121 North Hanover Street in Pottstown. The only question I have is there any provision in the plan itself or some supplemental plan to announce to the public in a medium other than electronic the various contents of this document over some period of time? Not everyone is plugged into the internet, even though this is 2014. Not everyone is computer literate. There are many people, I'm sure, in the community who are interested in what the plan contains, how it's going to be implemented, but may not be able to access it conveniently. So I'm wondering if there's any consideration being given to either print medium or some other kind of medium to the general public periodically on selected issues as it becomes used.
Well, we're gonna have, you said 40
copies.
and we'll make sure the library, number one, gets probably at least 10 of them.
And it's at the library now, Mr. Green, that during the public comment period, it was provided, so if anyone wanted to look at it, they could go to the local library and make sure it was there.
And, like I said, any digital copies and so forth, I mean, we can, certainly, those can be produced very cheaply and so forth, so. So hard copies that, are the expense, but we'll make sure the library has at least 10.
Any other public comment? The record should reflect there was no other public comment. The public hearing can be closed. After you're through your committee reports, the first item under new business is a resolution to consider approval of the comprehensive plan dated April 14, 2014. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to pass on my sincere thank you to Meredith Curran-Trago, who did a fantastic job on this. It was dumped on her, I guess, halfway through. I guess the project was maybe about a third of the way done, and she completed the rest of it. So she did a fantastic job, kept us on track. Sometimes when those meetings were late, we didn't want to, and she kept pushing us. And so we thank you very much for that. The next step that we are going to be doing is a downtown comprehensive plan. So that will be the next phase that we'll be looking at. So.
Did you want to mention that we burned out the first two representatives of the county? So we thank you for coming in the end and taking us to the finish line.
My pleasure. Thank you for your hard work on it.
Okay, subcommittee reports, Finance Administration, Councilor Wing, you touched on a little bit. Any more you want to add?
No, you have a hard copy of our report. Primarily what's done in the Finance Administration committee meetings are discussions linking what we perceive as policy to the day-to-day operations under the direction of our borough manager, assistant borough manager, and finance director. But I think it's really important, that's why I put it in a little bit earlier, that there were some things we absolutely recommended for action this evening. I want to refer to 13F on the agenda tonight, which is the motion to grant a request for the school board restoration fund. We are going to be saddled with responsibility for maintaining the stormwater conditions here in the town, and we have an opportunity to get a grant where we only have 2 matches against 20 or 25%. The committee definitely recommends that. We are in favor of our borough manager's recommendations to change the hours of operation here, not for 100 years, but at least we'll start off making minor adjustments that make us more user-friendly to the community, to the developers, and
Okay, safety. Vice President Gary.
Thank you, sir. We did meet this afternoon, just immediately prior to the council meeting. We discussed a few items. Number one, we had a citizen came to our February, I believe it was, meeting and expressed concern with a traffic issue in her neighborhood, the South Kime Street area. So in response to that, the police department conducted a traffic study in that area. Really weren't able to identify any problems. There's, as one might expect, there's more traffic during the peak hours, but they weren't able to identify a real speeding problem. It was, intermittent individuals, but no pattern was detected. The citizen that brought that to our attention has been given a copy of the traffic study that was conducted. If anyone else is interested in receiving a copy, they can just contact the borough offices and we'll make that available to you. We also do want to put out to anyone, if you have what you believe to be a traffic issue in your neighborhood and you would like us to look into it, just contact the borough offices and we'll have it sent over to the police department and they'll conduct the appropriate study. The other thing we want to mention is we did discuss what is item 13G on the agenda today, the proposed resolution to support the two bills, the House bill and the Senate bill, that would allow local municipal police departments to use the same, make sure I get it right, the same motor vehicle speed timing equipment as the Pennsylvania State Police. The mayor hinted at that in her report. The committee unanimously recommends that council would support such a resolution. I would ask for that. That's all I have.
Any questions? Okay, library, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. My own strength here. Just briefly, the library concluded its one of its more significant fundraisers this past Friday, I think it was, May 3rd, Friday or Saturday. We had a wine tasting from the Thornhill Winery in Lancaster, and we were very successful in that event. We substantially met our minimum requirement or goal that we had set for ourselves in terms of the number of tickets sold, and the number of actual people, attendees, was approximately 75 or 80 people who were actually there in attendance at the Hill School. We also want to give some specific recognition to Adam Sager's Catering Company, Time to Serve, THYME, the seasoning. They did an outstanding job for pairing the wines with the food items. Everyone had a very good time, and I don't have the full details on how much we've raised, but it was a significant first step for that kind of venue and that kind of event for the library, and we feel very, very satisfied of its success. The next thing of importance is that we've gotten a green light from the state concerning our application for a Keystone grant. We have $300,000, which you're hoping to get a matching amount from the state. We are proceeding with that information, and we're continuing to get cooperation with the borough through Erica Weeks and the office there to process that grant. They are highly competitive. We're hoping that we can be successful in this grant process, and we're optimistic that we're going to be successful, but we won't know until the state finally decides and makes some awards on those grants. Most of that money, if most of you know, has been hearing me talk month after month. Our building is an old building. We have substantially repaired the roof and done everything that we needed to do to keep the building from having infiltration from the roof. We have new air conditioning. We have new heating units. If you've been to the library, you've noticed a lot of plastic dangling because there's been construction inside now that the roof is secure. The progress on the inside has advanced, and we're now following a plan of building renovations that our property committee has undertaken. We have prioritized the various systems inside the building using an architect and board members who are familiar with construction standards, and so on, to develop a hit list for activity inside the building. So as time goes by, and if we're able to leverage the funds that we currently have, you should be seeing some significant improvements inside the library building itself. So that's advancing, and the board is working to continue that. The last thing is that we have spent some significant amount of time too on our strategic plan, which will be finalized within the next month or so. That is our roadmap for future activity. And the emphasis there will be for young people and teens especially. We have historically had a lot of emphasis with regard to middle school students. Our children's department is already very well established, very active. Library activity tends to drop off when students get a little older. When they get to middle school and senior high, not so much activity. So we're focusing on that segment of the student population. And as adults, we're hearing that there's lots going on there for adults. Downloading books, we're into the electronic age now. If you have books or iPads or other kinds of electronic devices, the library staff can be downloading books electronically to your devices. And we're trying to keep up with all of the technology that's going on, and we appreciate the borough's support in our efforts to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Any questions?
Now you have the renovation to the third floor of the library unfinished.
I'm glad you asked that. Our third floor, if any of you are at least familiar with the building, it was previously a post office before it became our library. It has a lot of potential. The last price tag that we had to fully renovate it, if we had a wish list and the wish list were fulfilled for all of the things we would want to do, make it barrier-free and secure and all of those kinds of things. Several years ago, the price tag on that was about $5 million. So we've got a long way to go. We're trying to do it within the means that we have, but we are trying as best we can to get to that third floor because that's where additional space can be found. A lot of character in what's already there. Tile floors, a lot of good oak, brass fittings. Should someone so choose and want to drop several million on us, we could certainly use that money to bring the library back to its full potential, but we're going to have to do it bit by bit at this point.
Thank you for your constancy, though, in support of the library, raising awareness and your devotion in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Human Relations, Mayor, there are the minutes. Anything you want to add to that?
No, they're just recently had a training from the Pennsylvania Regional Human Relations Commission. So they're looking for free training. We're also looking for outside funding sources to provide revenue to help us get more training so that we can expand the ordinance, so that there can be a little bit more teeth to what can be done with especially landlord-tenant issues, some of which may be bordering on just illegal. But the way the ordinance is stated right now and with the training that the commission has, there's somewhat of a deficiency. So we're working on that, we're working on letterhead, and getting information out at National Night Out, which will be August 3rd, first Tuesday of August. So that's some of the things that the commission's working on.
Okay, Medina.
I just wanted to thank everybody we had about 80 people that showed up for the Pick It Up Pottstown. Both days they cleaned up, they did a great job, although kind of need to keep it consistent, so we're working on that part too. And I just wanted to reiterate with Kathy, it's been a long time since the strategic plan has been done. It's already being in process, worked on, we're waiting to get that finalized and things. So as soon as that's out, we'll have that on our website. And if you get a chance, look at our new website. Ross, our new board member, is working tremendously with it. At some point, we'll have the merchants be able to go in and update their information and things as things happen in their particular businesses, so people can focus on that as well. So, thank you.
Your strategic plan, I guess that should be a part or even a starting point for our game plans as well. And we'll make sure the two of them dovetail together. National Night Out is the 5th. COG, Council Cole.
That's Wednesday, because
And EAC, I didn't see Mr. Durr out there. Regional planning, our meeting, we had an update on the mini grant, the second round, which is June 2nd, I think is the deadline. So boroughs and the townships in that group are in the process of getting those grants written. There's an interview process, I guess, is going to be started for the rec coordinator for the, to be started, and that's going to be for the circuit rider position. And we are also working on the regional comp plan, and that has to do with the parks and open space chapter. So that was some of the information they had on Pottstown was certainly outdated.